Imagine walking into a room, pretending to be utterly broke, just to watch rich snobs tear you down. That night, I did exactly that. What unfolded devastated my daughter-in-law's family in a way they never saw coming. And trust me, they absolutely deserved every single moment of it. Let me tell you something about myself that even my own son, Marcus, didn't know until that night. For 35 years, he saw me as, well, just Mom. The woman who left early for work, came home tired, cooked simple meals. To him, I was an ordinary employee, maybe a secretary, nothing special. And I let him believe it. I never once mentioned that I earned $40,000 every single month. That for nearly 2 decades, I've been a senior executive at a massive multinational corporation, signing multimillion-dollar contracts, making decisions that impacted thousands of lives. Why would I? My wealth was never a trophy I needed to display. I grew up understanding that true dignity comes from within, that silence often speaks louder than empty words. So, I kept my truth close. I lived in the same humble apartment, carried the same worn leather handbag, bought clothes from discount stores. I cooked at home, saved, invested, and became incredibly wealthy, all in silence. Because real power doesn't scream for attention. It simply observes. That Tuesday afternoon, Marcus called, and I was definitely observing. His voice was off, almost nervous, like when he was a little boy caught doing something naughty. "Mom, I need a favor," he started. "Simone's parents are visiting from overseas, and they want to meet you. We're having dinner Saturday. Please come." Something about his request made my stomach clench. It wasn't a son genuinely inviting his mother. It was a plea not to be embarrassed, a request to fit in, to make a good impression. I asked calmly, "Do they know anything about me?" A heavy silence hung in the air. Then Marcus stammered, "I told them you work in an office, live alone, that you... simple. That you don't have much." Simple. That word hit me like a punch. As if my entire life, my whole being, could be reduced to that pathetic adjective. As if I were a problem he needed to apologize for. I took a deep, steadying breath. "Okay, Marcus," I said, "I'll be there." After I hung up, I surveyed my living room. The well-worn but comfortable furniture, walls devoid of expensive art, the small, unassuming TV. Nothing to impress anyone. And right then, a cold, hard decision formed in my mind. If my son believed I was a poor woman, if his wife's parents were ready to judge, then I would give them exactly what they expected. I would become the broken, naive, barely surviving mother. I wanted to experience, firsthand, how they treated someone they perceived as having nothing. I needed to see their true colors. My gut told me Simone and her family were the kind who judged worth by bank accounts. And my gut is never wrong. Saturday finally came. I meticulously chose my outfit, the absolute worst dress I owned. It was light gray, shapeless, wrinkled, something you'd find at the bottom of a thrift store bin. My shoes were ancient and scuffed, no jewelry, not even a simple watch. I grabbed a faded canvas tote bag, pulled my hair into a messy, unassuming ponytail, and stared at my reflection. What stayed back was a woman utterly broken by life, completely forgettable. Perfect. I hailed a taxi and gave the address, a high-end restaurant in the city's most exclusive district. The kind of place where menus notoriously omit prices, and a single table setting probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. As we drove, a strange mix of anticipation and sadness washed over me. Anticipation, because I knew a storm was brewing. Sadness, because a small part of me, a naive, hopeful part, wished I was wrong. I wished they'd be kind, look past the old clothes. But the other part of me, the one forged over 40 years battling corporate sharks, knew exactly what was coming. The taxi pulled up. Warm, inviting lights, a doorman in white gloves, elegant patrons flowing in. I paid the driver, stepped out, took one deep, fortifying breath, and crossed the threshold. And there they were. Marcus stood by a long table near the windows, a dark suit, white shirt, shiny shoes, looking utterly anxious. Beside him was Simone, my daughter-in-law, in a tailored cream dress with gold accents, high heels, her hair perfectly straight. Impeccable, as always. But she wasn't looking at me. Her gaze was fixed on the entrance, a tense, almost embarrassed expression on her face. And then I saw them, Simone's parents, already seated like royalty on their thrones. Veronica, the mother, was a vision in an emerald green sequin dress, dripping with jewels. Her dark hair was pulled back in an elegant bun, her beauty cold and calculating, designed to intimidate. Next to her, Franklin, her husband, immaculate in a gray suit, a massive watch on his wrist, his face set in a serious, unyielding expression. They looked like they just stepped out of a glossy luxury magazine. I approached them slowly, taking small, hesitant steps, as if I were genuinely intimidated. Marcus spotted me first. His face instantly changed. His eyes widened, scanning me up and down. I saw him swallow hard. "Mom," he stammered, his voice laced with discomfort. "You said you'd come." "Of course, son. Here I am." I offered a timid smile, the kind a woman unaccustomed to such opulence might give. Simone gave me a quick, cold, almost mechanical peck on the cheek. "Mother-in-law, it's nice to see you." Her eyes, however, screamed the exact opposite. She introduced me to her parents with a strange, almost apologetic tone. "Dad, Mom, this is Marcus's mother." Veronica looked up, studying me intently. In that single instant, I saw it all. The judgment, the raw disdain, the profound disappointment. Her eyes meticulously scanned my wrinkled dress, my worn shoes, my canvas tote. She didn't say a word at first, simply extended a hand, cold, quick, and weak. "A pleasure," she uttered. Franklin followed suit. A limp handshake, a superficial smile. Charmed. I was relegated to the chair at the very end of the table, furthest from them, like an afterthought, a second-class guest. No one offered to pull out my chair. No one asked if I was comfortable. The waiter arrived with the elaborate, heavy menus, all in French. I opened mine, feigning complete bewilderment. Veronica watched me, a smirk playing on her lips. "Do you need help with the menu, Ilara?" she asked, her smile not quite reaching her cold eyes. "Yes, please," I replied, my voice small and timid. "I don't understand any of these words." She sighed dramatically, then ordered for me. "Something simple," she instructed the waiter. "Something that doesn't cost too much. We don't want to overdo it." The words hung heavy in the air, a thinly veiled insult. Franklin nodded in agreement. Marcus stayed down at his plate. Simone fidgeted with her napkin. No one dared to speak. I just watched, absorbing it all. Veronica then launched into polite conversation about their journey, the tiring flight, how different everything was here. But soon enough, she skillfully pivoted to her favorite topic, money. She casually dropped details about their 1000 LA night hotel, the luxury car they'd rented, the exclusive boutiques they'd browsed. "Just picked up a few things. Nothing major," she airily dismissed. "Just a few thousand." She kept glancing at me, openly expecting me to be impressed. I simply nodded. "How nice," I murmured. "Oh, it is," she chirped. "You know, Franklin and I have always been very careful with our finances. Worked hard, invested wisely. Now we own properties in 3 countries. Franklin handles the major businesses, and I oversee all our investments." A smug, superior smile spread across her face. "And you, Ilara," she purred, her tone saccharine but laced with venom, "what exactly is it you do?" I lowered my gaze. "I work in an office," I said softly. "I do a little bit of everything. Paperwork, filing, simple things." Veronica exchanged a knowing look with Franklin. "Ah, I see. Administrative work. That's perfectly fine, of course. Honest work. All jobs are dignified, aren't they?" "Of course," I agreed, my meekness a perfect facade. The food arrived, enormous plates with minuscule, artfully arranged portions. Veronica carved into her steak with surgical precision. "This costs $80, she announced, "but it's worth it. Quality, You know, one simply can't eat just anything. Right, Ilara? I nodded meekly. Of course, you're absolutely right. Marcus tried to steer the conversation, talking about his work, some new projects. But Veronica cut him off. Son, does your mother live alone? Marcus nodded, a flush creeping up his neck. Yes, she has a small apartment. Veronica fixed me with a gaze of feigned pity. It must be difficult, isn't it? Living alone at your age, without much support. And does your salary truly cover everything? I felt the trap snap shut. I manage, I stammered. I save where I can. I don't need much. Veronica sighed dramatically. Oh, Ilara, you are so brave. Truly, I admire women who struggle alone. Though, of course, one always wishes to give our children more, to give them a better life. But, well, everyone gives what they can. There it was, the subtle, yet deadly blow. She was telling me, without saying it, that I hadn't been enough for my son, that I hadn't given him what he deserved, that I was a poor, insufficient mother. Simone stared intently at her plate, wishing to disappear. Marcus's fists were clenched tight under the table. I just smiled. Yes, you're right. Everyone gives what they can. Veronica pressed on. We always ensured Simone had the absolute best. Top schools, world travel, 4 languages. Now she has an excellent job, earns very well. And when she married Marcus, well, we helped them quite a bit. Down payment on their house, paid for their honeymoon. That's just who we are. We believe in supporting our children. She looked at me, a challenge in her eyes. And you, Ilara, were you able to help Marcus with anything when they got married? The question hung in the air, sharp as a knife. Not much, I replied. I gave them what I could. A small gift. Veronica beamed. How sweet. Every detail counts, right? The amount doesn't matter. The intention is what's important. That's when the rage began to simmer. Not an explosive rage, but a cold, controlled fury, like a river flowing under thick ice. I breathed slowly, maintained that timid smile, and let Veronica ramble. Because people like her, they talk. They inflate their egos. They show off. And the more they talk, the more they expose the deep, cavernous emptiness inside. She took a dainty sip of her $200 bottle of red wine, swirling it with practiced elegance. This wine is from an exclusive region in France. But when you know quality, you don't skimp. Do you drink wine, Ilara? Only on special occasions, I said. Usually the cheapest one. I don't understand much about these things. She offered a condescending chuckle. Oh, don't worry. Not everyone has a trained palate. That comes with experience, with travel, with education. Franklin and I have visited vineyards all over the world. We're quite knowledgeable. Franklin puffed out his chest. It's a hobby, something we enjoy. Simone is learning too. She has good taste, inherited it from us. Simone offered a weak, forced smile. Thanks, Mom. Veronica then turned back to me. And you, Ilara, do you have any hobbies? Anything you enjoy doing in your free time? I shrugged. I watch television, cook, walk in the park. Simple things. Veronica and Franklin exchanged that look again, the one loaded with silent judgment. How lovely, Veronica said. Simple things have their charm, too. Although, of course, one always aspires to more, right? To see the world, experience new things, grow culturally. But, well, I understand not everyone has those opportunities. I nodded. You're right. Not everyone does. The waiter returned with dessert. Tiny, artistic portions. Veronica ordered the most expensive one, a $30 piece of cake the size of a cookie. This is delicious, she announced after her first bite. It has edible gold flakes on top. See, a detail only the best restaurants offer. I quietly ate my simpler, cheaper dessert. You know, Veronica continued, her tone shifting, becoming falsely maternal. I think it's important we talk about something as a family now that we're all here. Marcus is our son-in-law, and we love him very much. Simone loves him, and we respect that. But as parents, we always want the best for our daughter. Marcus tensed. Mom, I don't think this is the time. Veronica raised a hand, silencing him. Let me finish, son. This is important. She looked at me, a calculating glint in her eye. Elara, I understand you did the best you could with Marcus. Raising him alone wasn't easy, and I truly respect you for that. But now Marcus is in a different stage of life. He's married. He has responsibilities. Simone, and he deserves stability. Stability? I asked softly. Yes, Veronica replied. Financial and emotional stability. We've helped a lot, and we'll continue to help. But we also believe it's important that Marcus doesn't have unnecessary burdens. Her words were crystal clear. She was calling me a burden. Me, his mother, his mother-in-law. Simone was practically melting into her plate. Marcus's jaw was clenched so tight I thought it might shatter. Burdens. I repeated, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. By the way, if you're still hooked on this wild ride, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I've got more unbelievable stories coming your way that you won't want to miss. Veronica sighed, a sound heavy with false concern. I don't want to sound harsh, Elara, but at your age, living alone with a limited salary, it's natural for Marcus to worry about you, to feel he must take care of you. And that's fine, he's a good son. But we don't want that worry to affect his marriage. Do you understand me? Perfectly, I replied, my voice a whisper. Veronica beamed. I'm glad you do. That's why Franklin and I have been discussing something. She paused, building dramatic tension. We could offer you some financial assistance. A small monthly allowance. Something to help you live more comfortably, so Marcus doesn't have to worry so much. Modest, of course. We can't work miracles, but it would be a support. I remained silent, my eyes fixed on her, waiting. She continued, and in exchange, we'd simply ask you to respect Marcus and Simone's space. Not to seek them out so much, not to pressure them. To give them the freedom to build their life together without interference. How does that sound? There it was. The bribe. A naked transaction, disguised as charity. They wanted to buy me off. Pay me to vanish from my son's life, to ensure I wouldn't be a nuisance, wouldn't embarrass their precious daughter with my poverty. Marcus exploded. Mom, that's enough. You don't have to. Veronica cut him off, her voice sharp. Marcus, calm down. We adults here. Your mother understands, don't you, Elara? I calmly picked up my napkin, wiped my lips, took a slow sip of water, and let the silence stretch, thick and uncomfortable. Everyone's eyes were on me. Veronica, expectant. Franklin, arrogant. Simone, mortified. Marcus, desperate. And then, I spoke. My voice was utterly transformed. No longer timid, no longer small. It was firm, clear, and chillingly cold. That's a very interesting offer, Veronica. Truly, very generous of you. Veronica's face lit up with a triumphant smile. I'm glad you see it that way. I nodded slowly. But I have a few questions, just for absolute clarity. Veronica blinked. Of course, ask anything you like. I leaned forward, just slightly. How much, exactly, would you consider a modest monthly allowance? She hesitated. Well, we were thinking. $500, perhaps $700, depending. I nodded again. I see. $700 a month. For me to disappear from my son's life. Veronica's smile vanished. Her brow furrowed. I wouldn't put it like that, Elara. But I would. I counted, my voice steady. Because that is exactly how you put it. She shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Elara, I don't want you to misunderstand. We just want to help. Help? I echoed. How did you help with a house down payment? How much was that? Exactly. Veronica, regaining some pride, puffed up her chest. $40,000. Actually, $40,000. I mused. $40,000. How truly generous. And the honeymoon? $15,000, Veronica declared. A 3-week trip through Europe. Incredible, I stated, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Unbelievable. So, you've invested about $55,000 in Marcus and Simone. Veronica smiled smugly. Well, when you love your children, you don't hold back. I nodded slowly. You're absolutely right. When you love your children, you don't hold back. But tell me something, Veronica. All that investment, all that money, did it buy you anything that truly matters? Veronica blinked, utterly confused. Like what? I pressed. Did it buy you respect, real love, or just obedience? The atmosphere in the restaurant shifted dramatically. Veronica's smug smile evaporated. Excuse me, she challenged. My tone sharpened, cutting through the thick air. You've spent this entire evening talking about money. How much things cost. How much you've spent. How much you have. But not once have you asked how I am. If I'm happy. If anything hurts. If I need company. You've only calculated my worth. And apparently, I'm worth $700 a month. Veronica blanched. I didn't. Yes, you did. I interrupted, my voice rising just a fraction. From the moment I walked in, you've been measuring my value with your wallet. And do you know what I've discovered, Veronica? The people who talk only about money are the ones who understand its true value the least. Franklin interjected, his voice tight. I think you're misinterpreting my wife's intentions. I fixed him with a direct stare. And what were her intentions, Franklin? To treat me with pity? To humiliate me throughout this entire dinner? To offer me arms so I'd simply vanish? Franklin opened his mouth, then snapped it shut, utterly speechless. Marcus was pale, his eyes pleading. Mom, please. I looked at him, my gaze firm. No, Marcus. Please, don't. I am done being quiet. I placed my napkin neatly on the table, then leaned back in my chair, my posture no longer timid, no longer shrinking. I met Veronica's eyes head-on. She held my gaze for a second, then quickly, uncomfortably, looked away. Something had profoundly changed, and she felt it. Everyone felt it. Veronica, I continued, you said something very interesting earlier. You said you admire women who struggle alone, who are brave. She nodded slowly, caught off guard. Yes, I did. Then let me ask you, have you ever struggled alone? Have you ever worked without your husband's backing? Have you ever built something with your own two hands, without your family's money? Veronica stammered. I have my own achievements. Like what? I asked, my curiosity genuinely piqued. Tell me. She adjusted her hair, a nervous gesture. I manage our investments. I oversee properties. I make important decisions in our businesses. I nodded. Businesses your husband built. Properties you bought together. Investments made with money generated. Or am I wrong? Franklin cut in, annoyance lacing his voice. That's not fair. My wife works just as hard as I do. Of course, I replied, my voice calm. I don't doubt she works. But there's a fundamental difference between managing money that already exists and creating it from scratch. Between overseeing an empire you inherited and building it brick by brick. Don't you think? Veronica pressed her lips into a thin line. I don't know where you're going with this, Ilara. Let me explain, I said. 40 years ago, I was 23 years old. A secretary in a small company, earning minimum wage. I lived in a rented room, ate the cheapest food, and I was utterly, completely alone. Marcus stared at me, his eyes wide. I had never shared this level of detail with him. One day, I continued, my voice steady, I got pregnant. The father disappeared. My family turned their backs. I had a choice, keep going or give up. I chose to keep going. I worked until the last day of my pregnancy. 2 weeks after Marcus was born, I was back at work. A neighbor took care of him during the day. I worked 12 hours a day. I paused, taking a sip of water. The silence at the table was deafening. I didn't stay as secretary. I studied at night, took courses, learned English at the public library, accounting, finance, administration. I became an expert in things no one taught me. All on my own, all while raising a child alone, all while paying rent, buying food, medicine, clothes. Veronica was now staring at her plate, her arrogance visibly crumbling. And you know what happened, Veronica? I climbed. Slowly, From secretary to assistant, assistant to coordinator, coordinator to manager, manager to director. It took me 20 years. 20 years of non-stop work, of sacrifices you can't even imagine. But I did it. And do you know how much I earn now? I asked, looking directly at her. She shook her head, unable to speak. $40,000 a month. The silence that followed was absolute, as if someone had hit a universal pause button. Marcus dropped his fork with a clatter. Simone's eyes were huge, wide with shock. Franklin frowned in utter disbelief. And Veronica, she froze, her mouth slightly agape, a portrait of stunned disbelief. $40,000, I repeated. Every month. For almost 20 years. That's nearly $10 million in gross income over my career. And that's not even counting investments, bonuses, or company stock. Veronica blinked furiously. No, I don't understand. You earn $40,000 a month. That's right, I replied, my voice now perfectly calm. I'm the regional director of operations for a multinational corporation. I oversee 5 countries. I manage budgets of hundreds of millions of dollars. I make decisions that affect more than 10,000 employees. I sign contracts that you couldn't read without a team of lawyers. And I do it every single day. Marcus was ashen. Mom, why did you never tell me? I looked at him, a tender sadness in my heart. Because you didn't need to know, son. Because I wanted you to grow up valuing effort, not just money. I wanted you to become a person, a good man, not simply an heir. Money can corrupt, Marcus, and I wasn't going to let it corrupt you. Simone then whispered, her voice barely audible. But why do you live in that small apartment? Why the simple clothes? Why don't you drive a luxury car? I smiled. Because I don't need to impress anyone. Because true wealth isn't about what you show off. I learned that the more truly secure you are, the less you need to prove anything to anyone. I turned my gaze back to Veronica. That's why I came dressed like this tonight. That's why I pretended to be poor. Why I acted like a broken, naive woman. I wanted to see how you would treat me if you thought I had nothing. I wanted to see your true colors. And oh, Veronica, did I see them? Perfectly. Veronica's face was a mottled canvas of shame, rage, and humiliation. This is ridiculous. If you earned so much money, we would know. Marcus would know. Why would he believe you are poor? Because I let him, I replied. Because I never talked about my job. Because I live simply. The money I earn, I invest. I save. I multiply. I don't spend it on flashy jewelry or ostentatious displays in expensive restaurants. Franklin cleared his throat, trying to regain some control. Even so, this doesn't change the fact that you were rude, that you misinterpreted our intentions. Really? I challenged, my eyes narrowing. I misinterpreted when you called me a burden to Marcus. I misinterpreted when you offered to pay me $700 to disappear from his life. I misinterpreted every single condescending comment about my clothes, my job, my life. Franklin had no answer. Neither did Veronica. I rose from my chair. Everyone's eyes were glued to me. Let me tell you something that, clearly, no one has ever had the courage to tell you. I began, my voice now carrying absolute authority. Money does not buy class. It does not buy real education. It does not buy empathy. You have money, perhaps a great deal, but you don't possess an ounce of what truly matters. Veronica sprang to her feet, fury radiating from her. And you do? You, who lied, who deceived us, who made us look like fools. I didn't make you look like fools. I counted, my voice icy. You did that all on your own. I simply gave you the opportunity to show exactly who you are, and you executed it magnificently. Simone had tears streaming down her face. Mother-in-law, I didn't know. I know, I interrupted gently. You didn't know, but your parents knew exactly what they were doing. They knew they were humiliating me, and they reveled in it, until they discovered that the poor woman they scorned has more money than they do. And now they don't know what to do with that information. Veronica trembled, her voice barely a whisper. You have no right. I have every right. I shot back. Because I am your son-in-law's mother, and I deserve respect. Not because of my money, not because of my job, but because I am a human being. Something you conveniently forgot throughout this entire dinner. Marcus stood up, urgently. Mom, please, let's go. I looked at him. Not yet, son. I'm not finished. I fixed Veronica with one last, piercing look. You offered to help me with $700 a month. Let me make you a counteroffer. I will give you $1 million right now. If you can prove to me that you have ever, just once, treated someone kindly who didn't have money. Veronica opened her mouth, closed it, utterly speechless. She said nothing. Exactly, I stated. You can't. Because to you, people are only worth what they have in the bank. And that, Veronica, is the fundamental difference between you and me. I built wealth. You just spend it. I earned respect. You tried to buy it. I have dignity. You have bank accounts. I reached into my faded canvas tote bag, pulled out a sleek, black platinum credit card. I dropped it on the table in front of Veronica. This is my corporate card. Unlimited limit. Pay for the entire dinner. And include a generous tip. Consider it a gift from a broken, naive mother dot. Veronica stared at the card as if it were a venomous snake. Black, shiny, my name, Ilara Sterling, Regional Director, engraved in silver letters. Her hand trembled as she picked it up, turned it over, examined it. Then she looked at me. Her eyes no longer held that superior, contemptuous gleam. Now, there was something else. Something I never thought I'd see in her. Raw fear. Her voice cracked, barely a whisper. I don't need your money. I know, I replied, my voice gentle now. But I didn't need your pity either. And yet, you offered it to me all through dinner. So take this as a gesture of courtesy. Or perhaps, good manners. Something you clearly didn't pick up during all your European travels. Franklin slammed his hand, not gently, on the table. Enough. This is out of control. You are disrespecting us. Respect. I echoed, raising an eyebrow. How interesting that you choose that word now. Where was your respect when your wife questioned if my salary was enough to live on? Where was it when she suggested I was a burden to my own son? Where was it when she offered to buy me off so I'd disappear? Franklin's jaw clenched. Veronica just wanted to help. No, I corrected him sharply. Veronica wanted to control. She wanted to ensure the poor mother wouldn't tarnish her daughter's perfect image. She wanted to eliminate the weak link in their chain. The problem, Franklin, is she chose the wrong link. I looked at Simone. Her head was bowed, her hands trembling in her lap. Simone, I said softly. She lifted her head, tears silently streaming down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I didn't know that my parents. Don't finish that sentence, I interrupted, my voice gentle but firm. Because you did know. Maybe not about my money, but you knew exactly how your parents operate. You knew how they treat people they consider inferior, and you did nothing to stop them. Simone sobbed. I wanted to say something, but they are my parents. I know, I replied, and Marcus is my son. And yet, I let him make his own decisions. I let him choose his life, his wife, his path. Because that is how you truly love. With freedom, not with control. Not with money. Not with manipulation. Marcus moved closer to me, his voice choked. Mom, please forgive me. For never asking. For assuming. For thinking you were. His voice broke. I pulled him into a tight hug. You don't have to apologize, son. I did what I did for a reason. I wanted you to be independent. To value the right things. Not to depend on me financially, but to build your own life. But you made me feel like I had to protect you. Marcus confessed, pulling back slightly. Like I had to worry about you. That you were fragile. I know, I replied, a soft, understanding smile on my face. And it wasn't wrong for you to think that. Because that's how you learn to care. To worry about others. To be empathetic. Those are lessons money can't buy. Marcus hugged me even tighter. I'm sorry. So sorry. Veronica remained rigid, a statue of confusion and simmering rage. This doesn't change anything, she finally bit out. You lied. You deceived us. You came here with hidden intentions. You acted in bad faith. That's true. I nodded calmly. I acted. I pretended to be something I'm not. Exactly what you do every single day. Franklin scowled. What is that supposed to mean? It means, I explained, my voice cutting, that you hide behind your money, behind your jewels, your trips, everything you can buy. But inside, you are empty. You have no deep conversations, no real interests. You have nothing to offer beyond a bank account. Veronica let out a dry, bitter laugh. Coming from someone who lied all night, that's hypocrisy. Perhaps, I conceded. But my lie exposed the truth. Your truth. And now, you can't hide it. Now you know that I saw you, that I felt every comment, that I stored every insult disguised as advice, and I will never forget it. The waiter timidly approached. Excuse me, would you like anything else? Franklin shook his head abruptly. Just the check. The waiter nodded and disappeared. Veronica sank back into her seat, defeated. Her elegant posture was gone, replaced by the slump of someone who had just lost something profound. And it wasn't money. It was power. Ilara, she said, her voice now softer, devoid of its earlier aggression. I don't want this to ruin the relationship between our families. Marcus and Simone love each other. They have a life together. We can't let this. I cut her off. Let this what? Let this ruin your perfectly curated image. Let this expose what you really think. It's too late for that, Veronica. The damage is done. But we can fix it, she insisted. We can start over. No, I stated firmly. We can't. Because now I know who you are, and you know who I am. And that truth cannot be erased with empty apologies or fake smiles. You treated me like trash, and you did it with pleasure, because you thought you could. Franklin cleared his throat. You were the one who came here lying. You provoked this situation. You're right, I nodded. I provoked this. Because I needed to know. I needed to confirm what I already suspected. That you are not good people. That your money doesn't make you better. That you are exactly the kind of people who despise others for not having the same things. Veronica wiped a single, frustrated tear from her eye. We are not bad people. Maybe not, I replied. But you are definitely not good. And there's a huge difference between those two things. The waiter returned with the check, placing it conspicuously in the center of the table. No one touched it. Veronica looked at my black card, still in her hand, then at me. I'm not going to use your card, she declared. We will pay our own bill, as we always do. Perfect, I replied. Then keep that card, as a souvenir, a reminder that not everything is as it seems. That the woman you scorned all night has more than you will ever have. And I'm not just talking about money. Veronica slammed the card onto the table. I don't want it, and I don't want your moral lecture either. I pushed it back towards her. Keep it anyway, because something tells me you'll need it. Someday, you'll run into someone like me. Someone who pretends to be less than they are, and you'll make the same mistake again. Because people like you never learn. Franklin pulled out his wallet, a parade of shiny, golden credit cards. He selected one, placing it decisively on the check. The waiter took it and left. The silence that followed was thick, uncomfortable, heavy. Simone cried quietly, her shoulders shaking. Marcus squeezed my hand. Veronica stared blankly at the wall. Franklin scrolled furiously through his phone, avoiding all eye contact. The waiter returned, his voice hesitant. So, your card was declined. Franklin looked up, abruptly. Declined? How was it declined? The waiter repeated, declined. Do you have another form of payment? Franklin's face turned beet red. That's impossible. That card has an extremely high limit. It must be a system error. The waiter shrugged apologetically. I can try again, if you like. Franklin thrust another card at him. The waiter disappeared. Veronica looked nervously at her husband. What happened? I don't know. Franklin snapped, irritation boiling over. It must be a bank error. Maybe they froze the account for security. It happens sometimes when you travel. I nodded with feigned understanding. Of course. Those things happen. How inconvenient. The waiter returned once more, his face apologetic. I'm so sorry, sir. This one was also declined. Franklin sprang to his feet. This is ridiculous. I'm calling the bank right now. He stormed out of the restaurant. Veronica remained slumped in her seat, utterly mortified. This has never happened to us, she murmured, her voice hollow. Never. What terrible timing, I commented, without a trace of emotion. Marcus looked at the check. Mom, I interrupted him. You are not paying for anything. I reached into my simple, old leather wallet. I pulled out another card. This one wasn't black. It was transparent, made of heavy metal. A card that less than 1% of people in the world possess. I placed it gently on the table in front of Veronica. Her eyes widened. She recognized it instantly. That's a Centurion card. That's right, I confirmed. American Express. Exclusive invitation. Minimum annual spending requirement of $250,000. $5,000 annual fee, just for the privilege of having it. And benefits you can never imagine. Veronica said nothing, her gaze fixed on the card. The waiter took it, carefully, as if it was something sacred. He returned in less than 2 minutes. Thank you, Miss Sterling. Everything is settled. Would you like the receipt? It's not necessary, I replied. The waiter nodded and silently vanished. I rose, picked up my old wallet and canvas tote, and cast one final glance at Veronica. Dinner was delicious, I said, my voice sweet, almost lethal. Thank you for recommending the place. And thank you, Veronica, for showing me exactly who you are. You've saved me a lot of time, a lot of energy, and countless future disappointments. Veronica finally looked up, her eyes burning red with fury, not tears. This doesn't end here, she snarled, her voice trembling. You can't just humiliate us and walk out as if nothing happened. Simone is our daughter. Marcus is our son-in-law. We are still family. You will have to see us. You're absolutely right, I smiled, a cold, hard glint in my eye. I will have to see you at birthdays, at Christmases, at family gatherings. But now, I will see you differently. I will no longer wonder what you truly think of me. I already know, and you will know that I know, and you will live with that. Every time you see me, every time you pretend to be kind, you will remember this night. Just then, Franklin stormed back to the table, phone in hand, his face white with impotent rage. There's a problem with the accounts, he muttered. A temporary block for security. It will be resolved tomorrow. He glanced at the table. Did they pay already? Yes, Veronica replied, her voice flat, not looking at him. She paid. Franklin met my gaze, his pride utterly crushed. Thank you, he whispered, barely audible. You're welcome, I replied, a chilling smile on my face. That's what family is for, isn't it? To help each other, especially when someone needs a small allowance. Say, $700. Or in this case, $800, which is what this dinner cost. Franklin closed his eyes, a silent defeat washing over him. Veronica clenched her fist so hard her knuckles turned white. Marcus rushed to my side. Mom, please. Let's go. It's enough. I looked at him. You're right, son. It is enough. I turned to Simone. She was still crying quietly. Simone, I said softly. She lifted her head, tears streaking her face. I'm sorry, she choked out. I'm so sorry. I didn't know that my parents. Don't finish that sentence, I interrupted, my voice gentle but firm. Because you did know. Maybe not about my money, but you knew how your parents operate. You knew how they treat people they consider inferior. And you did nothing to stop them. Simone sobbed. I wanted to say something. But they are my parents. I know, I replied. And Marcus is my son. And yet, I let him make his own decisions. I let him choose his life, his wife, his path. Because that is how you truly love. With freedom, not with control. Not with money. Not with manipulation. Marcus came closer, his eyes wet with emotion. Mom, forgive me. Please forgive me for never asking, for assuming, for thinking you were. His voice broke. I pulled him into a tight hug. You don't have to apologize, Son, I did what I did for a reason. I wanted you to be independent, to value the right things, not to depend on me financially, but to build your own life. But you made me feel like I had to protect you. Marcus confessed, pulling back slightly. Like I had to worry about you, that you were fragile. I know, I replied, a soft, knowing smile on my face. And it wasn't wrong for you to think that, because that's how you learn to care, to worry about others, to be empathetic. Those are lessons money can't buy. Marcus hugged me even tighter. I'm sorry. So sorry. Veronica remained rigid, a statue of utter confusion and barely contained rage. This doesn't change anything, she finally declared, her voice still trembling. You lied. You deceived us. You came here with hidden intentions. You acted in bad faith. That's true. I nodded calmly. I acted. I pretended to be something I'm not. Exactly what you do every single day. Franklin scowled. What is that supposed to mean? It means, I articulated clearly, that you hide behind your money, your jewels, your trips, everything you can buy. But inside, you are empty. You have no deep conversations, no real interests. You have nothing to offer beyond a bank account. Veronica gave a dry, bitter laugh. Coming from someone who lied all night, that's hypocrisy. Perhaps, I conceded. But my lie exposed the truth. Your truth. And now, you can't hide it. Now you know that I saw you, that I felt every comment, that I stored every insult disguised as advice, and I will never forget it. I turned to leave, walking a few steps, then paused and turned back, one last time. Veronica, one more thing. She looked at me, wary. Do you remember when you said you speak 4 languages? She frowned. What does that have to do with anything? Just curious, I replied. In which of those 4 languages did you learn to be kind? Because clearly, it wasn't in any of them. Veronica opened her mouth, but no words came out. Exactly, I said. You can speak 100 different languages and still not say anything worth listening to. I walked out of that restaurant, Marcus right beside me. The cool night air hit my face, and I took a deep, shuddering breath. It felt as if a colossal weight had been lifted from my soul. Not a physical burden, but an emotional one. The weight of pretending, of tolerating, of keeping silent. Marcus took my arm, his concern palpable. Mom, are you okay? Perfectly fine, I replied, a genuine smile finally gracing my lips. Better than ever. And you, Marcus? He sighed deeply. I don't know, Mom. I'm processing everything. I just can't believe you never told me about your job, your money, everything you accomplished. I stopped, looking him squarely in the eyes. Does it bother you? He quickly shook his head. No, of course not. I'm proud, incredibly proud, but I also feel foolish, blind. You are not foolish, I told him softly. You simply saw what I wanted you to see, and I did it on purpose, because I needed you to grow up without depending on me, without feeling like an economic safety net was waiting for you. I needed you to fight, to work, to value everything you achieved on your own. Marcus nodded, a new understanding dawning in his eyes. I understand. But now I also understand why you never complained, why you never asked for help, why you always seemed so calm. Because you needed nothing. I smiled. Oh, I needed many things, son. Only none of them could be bought with money. I needed to see you grow up, see you become a good man, see you make the right decisions. And I achieved that. Even marrying Simone, he asked, his voice weak. Even marrying Simone, I confirmed. She is not her parents. She can learn. She can change. But that depends on her. And on you. On how you build your relationship. On what values you choose to follow. Marcus fell silent, processing, thinking. A taxi pulled up beside us. I called for a rideshare as we left. I opened the door. Marcus stopped me. Mom, can I ask you one more thing? Of course. Why did you do it? Why come pretending to be poor? Why didn't you just tell them the truth from the beginning? I closed the taxi door for a moment and turned to him fully. Because I needed to know, son. I needed to confirm if my suspicions were correct. if Simone's family was truly as I imagined. And unfortunately, I was right. Marcus lowered his gaze. I'm sorry. You don't have to apologize for them, I told him. But you do have to decide what kind of husband you want to be. What kind of father you want to be someday. What do you mean? He asked, confused. I mean, you've just witnessed two very different ways of handling money and power. Your in-laws' way and mine. They use it to control, to humiliate, to feel superior. I use it to have freedom, to help without showing off, to live peacefully. You decide which path to follow. Marcus nodded slowly. I understand. I opened the taxi door again and got in, rolling down the window. Marcus leaned in. Mom, one last question. Tell me, are you ever going to forgive Veronica and Franklin? I thought for a moment, the city lights blurring. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, I replied. Nor does it mean allowing it to happen again. I might forgive them someday, when I see a real change. When they start seeing people as people, not as numbers. But until then, I will simply be polite, distant, and extremely cautious. And me? Marcus asked, his voice vulnerable. Do you forgive me for not asking, for assuming, for allowing this dinner to happen? I looked at him tenderly. Son, there's nothing to forgive. You did what you thought was right. You wanted your family to meet. That is beautiful. What happened afterward was not your fault. It was theirs. And a little bit mine, too, because I decided to play their game. Marcus offered a weak smile. You won. I won. I nodded. But I don't feel victorious. I feel tired. And sad. Because I confirmed something I didn't want to confirm. That some people will never change. That some families are broken, even if they have money. That there are voids no bank account can fill. The taxi driver cleared his throat, subtly. Should we go? Yes, I replied. Give me 1 second. I looked at Marcus one last time. Go to Simone. Talk to her. Listen to her. Support her. But also be honest. Tell her how you felt tonight. Tell her what you expect from her family. And from her. Because if you don't establish boundaries now, this will happen again and again. I will, Marcus promised, his voice firm. I love you, Mom, and I mean it more now than ever. Because now I know who you really are. And you are incredible. I smiled, a warmth spreading through my chest. I love you too, son. Always have. Always will. No matter how much money I have or don't have. Because love has no price. And that is a lesson Veronica and Franklin will never learn. Marcus stepped away from the taxi. I gave the driver a nod. Can we go? The taxi started to move. I watched Marcus in the rearview mirror, walking back toward the restaurant. His shoulders were slumped, thoughtful. He was probably going back to find Simone, to face his in-laws, to have difficult conversations. And I felt a profound sense of pride. Because that meant he was maturing. He was learning. He was choosing to be better than the example he had just witnessed. The taxi sped through the city's illuminated streets. I closed my eyes, replaying everything. Every word. Every look. Every moment of searing tension. And I wondered if I had done the right thing. If I had been too harsh. Too cruel. Too vengeful. But then, I remembered every disguised insult. Every condescending comment. Every look of disdain. And I knew, deep in my soul, that no, I hadn't been too anything. I had simply been honest. And finally, the taxi was crossing the empty, late-night streets. The building lights flashed by the window like distant stars. I opened my old canvas tote and took out my phone. A simple, unassuming device, nothing flashy. 3 unread messages. One from my assistant about a Monday meeting, another from a colleague congratulating me on a closed contract, and one from an unknown number. I opened the last one. It was Simone. Mother-in-law, please forgive me. I didn't know my parents would be like that. I am ashamed. I need to talk to you, please. I stared at the message for a long time. My thumb hovered over the reply button. Then I decided against it. No, she needed time. They needed time. Apologies born from raw guilt rarely lead to genuine change. True transformation requires time, deep reflection, and consistent action. I put the phone aside. The taxi driver glanced at me in his rearview mirror. Excuse me for asking, but is everything okay? I looked up. Yes, everything's fine. Why do you ask? Well, he said, you got in here very quietly. Usually, folks leaving that fancy place are happy, chatting about their delicious dinner. You look like you just walked out of a war zone. I offered a faint smile. Something like that. Was it that obvious? He shrugged. Been driving a cab for 20 years. Seen it all. Drunks, fights, couples breaking up, families arguing. And you've got that look. The look of someone who finally said what they've been holding inside for years. You're perceptive, I commented. Part of the job, he replied, a small smile playing on his lips. Plus, it helps pass the time. Want to talk about it? You don't have to, but sometimes it helps to tell things to a stranger. Someone who won't judge you. Someone who doesn't know you. I considered his offer. It was tempting, a comforting thought. But I shook my head. Thank you, but I think I've talked enough for today. He nodded. I understand. But let me tell you something. Whatever happened in there, you did the right thing. I know, because you're calm. You're not crying. You're not screaming. You're processing. And that means you spoke your truth. And the truth always brings peace, even if it hurts. His words surprised me. He was an older man, maybe 60, with kind eyes and working man's hands. A simple man, just like the one I pretended to be. Do you believe in the truth? I asked him. I believe in honesty, he corrected. Not always the absolute truth, because truth changes depending on who's telling it. But honesty doesn't. Honesty is saying things the way you feel them. Without masks, without lies. Even if it hurts. Even if it makes things awkward. Even if it costs you something. I nodded. You're right. My wife always told me I was too direct, he continued, a wistful note in his voice. That I said things without a filter, that I hurt people without meaning to. And maybe she was right. But she also told me she never doubted me, because she knew what came out of my mouth was real. Not calculated. Not manipulated. Just real. I smiled gently. She sounded like a good woman. She was, he replied, his gaze distant. She died 5 years ago. I'm so sorry, I said, truly meaning it. He shook his head. Don't be sorry. We had 40 years together. 40 years of honesty, of fights, of reconciliations, of laughs, of tears. And not once did I go to sleep wondering what she really thought. Because she always said it. And so did I. That is a gift. You're right, I murmured. It's a gift. The taxi stopped at a red light. Can I ask you something personal? The driver inquired. Go ahead. Are you rich? The question caught me off guard. Not the question itself, but the direct, unfiltered way he asked it. Why do you ask that? Because, he began, I picked you up from $1,000 person restaurant, but you dress like someone who shops at discount stores. You have an old bag, worn out shoes, but you talk like an executive. You move like someone with power, and you paid for my cab with crisp, new bills that you pulled out of a wallet that looks 20 years old. Observant, I commented. Part of the job, he repeated, a wry smile. So, am I? It depends on how you define rich, I replied. If you're talking about money, yes, I have enough. More than enough. If you're talking about happiness, I also have peace. Health, a son I love. Work I'm passionate about. All of that makes me rich, in many ways. He nodded, satisfied. I knew there was something. Truly rich people don't need to prove it. The light turned green, and the taxi moved forward. So, what happened in that restaurant? He asked, his curiosity gentle. If it's not too indiscreet. I pretended to be poor, I replied, to see how they would treat me. He let out a loud, astonished laugh. Seriously, that's brilliant. And how did they treat you? Like trash, I said, without emotion. They humiliated me, offered me arms, treated me as if I were invisible, less than human. He stopped laughing. I'm sorry. That must have hurt. A little, I admitted, but it also confirmed something for me. That I was right about those people. That they weren't worth my time. That they didn't deserve my respect. And now they know it. Now they know who I am. and they will have to live with that shame. The taxi driver whistled softly. That must have been epic. It was. I smiled. It definitely was. We arrived at my building, an older, middle-class building. Nothing luxurious, nothing flashy, but it felt comfortable, safe. The taxi driver parked and looked up at it. You live here? I do, I confirmed. He shook his head, astonished. You truly are special. Most people with your kind of money move to expensive areas. Buildings with doormen, private security, gyms, pools. You live like a normal person. I'm a normal person, I replied. I just happen to have more money than most. But that doesn't make me different. It doesn't make me better. Money is just a tool, not an identity. He smiled. I wish more people thought that way. The world would be better. I took out my wallet. How much is it? $30, he replied. I handed him a crisp $100 bill. Keep the change. This is too much, he protested. It's not, I said. You listened to me. You gave me perspective. You reminded me that there are still good people in the world. That's worth far more than $70. He took the bill carefully. Thank you. Truly, thank you. Thank you, I replied. And take care of that honesty. It's rare. It's valuable. Don't lose it. I won't, he promised. I got out of the taxi, closing the door softly. He rolled down the window. One last thing. Tell me. Whatever happened tonight, don't regret it. Don't feel sorry. Because people like you, people who speak the truth, even if it hurts, are the ones who change the world. Little by little, one conversation at a time. I smiled. Thank you. I will remember that. The taxi drove away. I stood in front of my building, looking up at my fifth-floor window. The light was off, dark, silent, waiting for me. I entered the building and walked up the stairs, as I always do. I never use the elevator. I prefer to walk, to stay active. I reached my door, pulled out my keys, the same keys I'd had for 15 years. I opened the door. The apartment was cold, empty. I flicked on the light. Everything was in its place. The simple living room, the small kitchen, the dining room with its mismatched chairs, the walls devoid of expensive artwork. And I felt a profound peace. Because this place was mine. Truly mine. Not bought to impress. Not decorated to show off. Simply a space where I could be myself. Without masks. Without pretensions. I took off my old shoes, peeled off the wrinkled gray dress, and slipped into comfortable, old, familiar pajamas. I made myself some tea, sat on the sofa, and turned on the television. News. Nothing interesting. I turned it off. I sat in silence, just thinking, processing, feeling. And for the first time in many, many years, I felt completely free. Free from pretending. Free from being silent. Free from tolerating. Free from being less than I was. Because that night, I didn't just expose Veronica and Franklin. I also liberated myself from expectations, from judgment, from the need to hide who I truly was. And that was invaluable. More than any amount in my bank account. My phone vibrated. Another message. This time, from Marcus. Mom, did you get home safely? I smiled. I quickly replied, yes, son. I arrived perfectly fine. Home and resting. His reply was immediate. I love you. Thank you for everything. For being who you are. For teaching me. For never giving up. I closed my eyes. A tear rolled down my cheek. Not from sadness, but from relief. From love. From gratitude. I replied, I love you too, always. I put the phone aside, drank my tea, looked around my simple apartment. My sanctuary. My truth. And I smiled. Because at the end of the day, it didn't matter how much money I had. It didn't matter how high I had climbed in my career. The only thing that mattered was this. This moment. This peace. This honesty with myself. I woke up early on Sunday, as always. 40 years of working had conditioned me to rise with the sun. Even on my day off, my body just didn't know how to sleep late. I prepared strong, black coffee, sat by the window, a hot mug cradled in my hands. I watched the city wake up, vendors opening stalls, people walking purposefully. Life continued, indifferent to personal dramas. My phone rang. A familiar number. Marcus, I answered. Good morning, son. His voice sounded tired. Mom, I need to talk to you. Did something happen? A lot, he replied. Last night, Simone and I talked for hours. Her parents were there too. It was intense. I took a slow sip of coffee. Tell me. Marcus sighed deeply. After you left, I went back to the restaurant. Veronica and Franklin were still there, waiting for their cards to work. It was humiliating for them. Simone was devastated, crying, and I was furious, more furious than I've been in years. I waited in silence, letting him speak. He continued. I told them everything. Everything I felt during that dinner. I told them I was ashamed of them, that they treated my mother like trash, that their behavior was unacceptable, that I wouldn't tolerate it ever again. And what did they say? I asked gently. At first, Veronica tried to defend herself. So they just wanted to protect Simone, ensure I had a stable family, that their intentions weren't bad. Franklin said I was exaggerating, that it had been a normal dinner, that your reaction was disproportionate. I squeezed my mug. Typical. But then Simone spoke. Marcus continued, his voice full of awe. She told her parents they were wrong, that they had been cruel, that she saw everything, and she was ashamed to be their daughter at that moment. His voice cracked. Mom, I've never seen Simone confront her parents like that. I smiled slightly. That's good. It means she's waking up. Veronica got hysterical, Marcus recounted. Started yelling that Simone was ungrateful, that they'd sacrificed everything for her, given her the best life, that she had no right to judge them. Franklin backed her up, said we were being manipulated by you, that you'd planned everything to make them look bad. I let out a dry laugh. Of course. It's all my fault. That's what made them angriest. Marcus chuckled, a hint of weariness in it. I told them they were right, that you did plan everything, but that they fell into the trap because that's truly how they are. Because they really do treat people they consider inferior badly. That you just gave them the opportunity to show themselves, and they did it perfectly. Well said, I murmured. Thanks. I learned it from you. A moment of silence. Then Marcus continued, his voice serious. Mom, I need you to know something. Last night, I made a decision. Simone and we're going to set boundaries with her parents. We're not going to cut off the relationship entirely, but we're setting clear rules. No comments about money. No comparisons. No attempts to control our lives. And if they can't respect that, then they'll have to accept the consequences. And did they accept? I asked. No, he replied. They left furious. Said we were ungrateful, that we'd regret it someday, that when we needed help, they wouldn't be there. Franklin said he was going to reconsider his will. Veronica said Simone had chosen the wrong family. I shook my head. Emotional blackmail. The last resort of people without arguments. Exactly, Marcus agreed. But it didn't work. Simone stood firm. I did too. They left the restaurant without saying goodbye, without looking back. And honestly, Mom, I felt relief. As if a huge weight had been lifted off me. That's because it was, I told him. You lifted the weight of living under their expectations, under their control. Now you can build your life however you want, not as they dictate. Thank you, Mom, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. Thank you for doing what you did last night. I know it was difficult. I know it was awkward. But we needed to see it. I needed to see who they really were. And Simone needed to see that there was another way to live. A more honest, more authentic way. You're welcome, son. I only did what I believed was right. There's something else, Marcus added. Simone wants to come see you. She wants to apologize in person. She wants to talk to you. Not as a daughter-in-law trying to look good, but as a woman trying to learn. What do you think? I thought for a moment. Tell her she can come, but not today. Give her a few days to process. To think carefully about what she wants to say. Rushed apologies are hollow. The ones that take time, those are real. I'll tell her, Marcus promised. Mom, one more question. How are you doing after all of this? How do you feel? I looked out the window. The sun was fully up now. The day had officially begun. I'm well, I replied. Better than well. I'm at peace. Because I finally said everything I needed to say, and I don't regret anything. I'm glad to hear that, Marcus said. I love you. I love you too. Rest. I'll see you soon. I hung up the phone, finished my coffee, and stood up. I decided to do something I hadn't done in a long, long time. Go for a walk. Aimlessly. Without rushing. Just walking and thinking. I dressed in comfortable clothes. Old jeans, a simple top, worn sneakers. Grabbed my keys and stepped out. The streets were already bustling with life. Families strolling, children laughing, couples holding hands, vendors offering delicious food. The smell of fresh bread filled the air. I walked through the nearby park and found a bench, watching people pass by. And then I realized something profound. Most of these people probably didn't have much money. They lived with just enough, worked hard, struggled every day. But they smiled. They hugged each other. They enjoyed the simple moments. And then I thought about Veronica and Franklin, with all their money, their properties, their trips, their jewels. Were they truly happy? Or were they just busy trying to prove something? Trying to fill a void with material things? Trying to buy value, respect, and love, things that could never, ever be bought. An older woman sat down beside me. Good morning, she said with a warm smile. Good morning, I replied. Beautiful day, isn't it? She commented. Very beautiful, I nodded. She took bread from her bag and began feeding the pigeons. I come here every Sunday, she said. It's my moment of peace before the week gets crazy again. I understand that, I said. I needed a moment of peace today, too. Difficult week? She asked gently. Something like that, I replied. More like a difficult night. She nodded wisely. Sometimes a single night can change everything. You're right, I murmured. Can I give you some unsolicited advice? She offered. Go ahead, I smiled. She pointed to the pigeons. Look at those birds. Some are big, some are small. Some have pretty feathers, others scruffy ones. But they all eat from the same bread. They all share the same space. None of them thinks they are better than the others. That's a nice metaphor, I said. It's not a metaphor, she corrected, her eyes twinkling. It's the truth. Humans are the only animals that invent false hierarchies, that measure value with external things. Pigeons don't do that. They just live. They just are. We should learn from them. I smiled broadly. You are completely right. I should give classes to some people I know. She laughed. Oh, child, at my age, I don't give classes. I just observe and share what I see. But most people don't listen. They're too busy running, buying, competing, forgetting that in the end, we all end up in the same place. With or without money, with or without jewels, with or without properties, we all end up turning into dust. How philosophical, I commented. How realistic, she corrected. I've lived 82 years. I've seen it all. And I can tell you something. The most miserable people I met were the ones who had the most. Because it was never enough. They always wanted more. They always competed. They always compared. And they died without having truly lived. Without having truly loved. Without having truly been. Her words resonated deep within me, as if she had articulated something I already knew but hadn't yet put into words. Thank you, I told her, for sharing that. She patted my hand. You're welcome, child. And remember, it doesn't matter how much you have or don't have. What matters is how you treat others. Because that is what remains. That is what transcends. That is the only inheritance worth having. She slowly stood up, put her empty bread bag away, and waved goodbye. Have a beautiful Sunday. You too, I replied. I watched her walk away, a small woman, hunched with age, wearing old clothes and worn shoes, but carrying more wisdom than all the Veronicas and Franklins in the world combined. And I felt grateful. Grateful for that encounter, for that reminder, for that truth, and empowered. I stayed on the bench a while longer, thinking, feeling, processing everything that had happened. And I came to a conclusion. I didn't regret anything. No word, no action, because everything I did last night was necessary. It was liberating. It was honest. And honesty, even when it hurts, is always the right path. 3 days passed before Simone knocked on my door. 3 days of silence, processing, and reflection. When I heard the bell ring that Wednesday afternoon, I knew exactly who it was. I opened the door. There she stood, without makeup, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, dressed in jeans and a plain top. No jewelry, no heels. She looked vulnerable, real, different from the woman I had seen in the restaurant. "Mother-in-law," she said in a low voice. "May I come in?" I stepped aside. "Go ahead." She entered slowly, looking around, observing my apartment with new eyes. The simple living room, the old furniture, the walls devoid of expensive decor. She sat on the sofa when I pointed to it. I sat across from her, waiting. No pressure, letting her find her words. "I don't know where to start," she finally said, her voice soft. "Start where you feel ready," I replied gently. She took a deep, shaky breath. "I came to apologize, but not just with words. I came to explain why my parents are the way they are, and why I stayed silent for so long." I listened in silence. Simone continued, her voice trembling slightly. "My parents grew up poor, in a tiny town overseas, without electricity, without running water, working in the fields since they were children. They saw their own parents die young due to lack of medicine, lack of money. They went hungry. They suffered, and they promised themselves they would never be poor again. They would do whatever it took to get out of there." I nodded. "I understand. That explains a lot." "They worked like animals," Simone went on. "Saved every penny. They immigrated, looking for opportunities. Franklin built his business from scratch, literally. And when they started owning money, they never forgot what it was like not to have it. That's why they talk about it so much. That's why they measure everything by that standard. Because to them, money means survival. It means security. It means never going back to that dark place." "It's understandable," I said. "Trauma does strange things to people." Simone nodded. "But that doesn't excuse how they treated you." "I know, and I want you to know that I saw everything. Every comment, every look, every insult. And I stayed silent because I've been doing that my whole life. Staying silent. Accepting. Letting them control everything because they taught me that contradicting them was a betrayal. It was ungrateful. And now?" I asked gently. "Now I understand I was wrong," she replied, looking up, her eyes clear. "That love is not control. That family is not blind obedience. That I can love them and still not agree with them. Marcus helped me see it. And you helped me see it that night at the restaurant, when you revealed yourself, when you told them everything. It was as if a blindfold had been ripped from my eyes." Simone wiped away a tear. "I always knew something was wrong. I always felt that the way they measured people was incorrect. But I convinced myself that it was me, that I was too sensitive, that I didn't understand the world. But you showed me that now. There's another way to live. A way where money does not define your worth. Where humility is strength. Where authenticity is wealth." I took a sip of water. "Simone, I didn't come that night to change you. I came to protect myself, to know who I was dealing with." "I know," she replied. "And I thank you for that, because your brutal honesty saved me. It saved me from becoming my mother, from perpetuating that cycle, from teaching my future children that people are valued by what they have. I don't want that. I don't want to be that." "And your parents?" I asked. "How were they after all this?" Simone sighed. "Furious, hurt, humiliated. Veronica hasn't spoken to me in 3 days. Franklin sent me a message saying I had disappointed him, that I had chosen strangers over my own blood, that I would regret it someday." She paused. "And you know what's strange? I don't feel bad. I feel free." "That's good," I said. "It means you made the right decision." Simone nodded. "Marcus and I set boundaries. We told them they can be a part of our lives, but only if they respect us, if they respect our decisions, if they stop trying to control us with money or emotional blackmail. And if they can't do that, then they'll have to accept a distant relationship." "How did they take that?" I asked. "Badly," Simone replied. "Veronica said we were ungrateful, that they'd sacrificed everything for me. Franklin threatened to disinherit me, to cut off all financial aid, as if that were the only thing we cared about, as if our love for them depended on their money. And that's when I realized, she continued, her voice gaining strength, they really believe that. They really think their value is in their wallet. It's sad. Very sad, I commented, because they have so much and enjoy nothing. They just accumulate, compete, show off, but they never stop to ask themselves if they are happy, if they have peace, if they have real connections with people. They just count their properties and feel victorious, while inside, they are empty. She was silent for a moment. Then she looked at me directly, her eyes filled with determination. Mother-in-law, I want to ask you for something. Tell me. I want to learn from you. I want you to teach me how to live with dignity, how to be rich without needing to prove it, how to have peace in the midst of chaos, how to be strong without being cruel. Because that night, I saw something in you that I never saw in my parents. I saw class. I saw real power. I saw a woman who didn't need to shout to be heard. I smiled tenderly. Simone, I can't teach you that. That is learned by living, by making mistakes, by falling, by getting up. The only thing I can do is share my experience and tell you that the path is not easy. You will face criticism, judgment, people who won't understand why you live differently. But if you stay true to yourself, if you live according to your values, you will find peace. And that peace is worth more than any amount of money. I want to try, Simone said, her voice firm. I want to be better, not just for Marcus, but for me, because I deserve to live without that constant pressure, without that need to impress, without that fear of not being enough. Then do it, I told her. But don't do it all at once. Do it little by little. Start by questioning your habits, your purchases, your motivations. Ask yourself before every decision, is this for me or for others? Does this bring me peace or just appearance? Simone nodded, absorbing every word. And my parents, do you think they will ever change? I looked at her with honesty. I don't know. Change requires recognizing a problem, and they don't believe they have one. They believe the world is wrong, that people are ungrateful, that they are victims. Until they see that, change isn't possible. But you can change. You can break the cycle. I will, she promised, with Marcus's help. And I hope, with your guidance too. You don't need my guidance, I replied. You just need your internal compass. That voice that tells you what is right and what is wrong. That voice you silenced for years to please your parents. Listen to it. Trust it. Follow it. Simone wiped away the last tears, a small, resolute smile on her face. Thank you, mother-in-law, for everything, for your patience, for your honesty, for not giving up on us. There's nothing to thank me for, I said. Just promise me one thing. When you have children, teach them the value of people, not the price. Teach them empathy, humility, and kindness. Things that don't cost money, but are worth everything. I promise, Simone said firmly. I promise with all my heart. We hugged. A real, warm, honest hug. No acting. No masks. Just two women connecting as human beings. Simone left an hour later, lighter, freer, with a new hope shining in her eyes. I closed the door behind her. I sat back down on my sofa, looked around my simple apartment, and smiled. Because this was enough. This was everything. An honest space. An authentic life. Real relationships. I didn't need more. I never needed more. My phone chimed. A message from Marcus. Mom, Simone told me about her visit. Thank you for welcoming her, for listening, for giving her a chance. I love you more than words can express. I smiled, a deep, contented smile. I simply replied, I love you too, son. Always. I put the phone aside, sat by the window, and watched the sunset paint the sky in fiery oranges and soft pinks. In that moment, a fundamental truth settled deep in my bones. Real wealth isn't measured by how much you possess. It's about how deeply you enjoy what you do have. It's about the peace you carry within. It's about the genuine people who surround you. It's about looking in the mirror and truly being proud of the person staring back. Veronica and Franklin had millions, yes. But I had this tranquility, this authenticity, this pure, unconditional love for my son. And that made me infinitely richer than they could ever imagine. I never pretended to be poor again. I didn't need to. I had learned what I needed to learn. I had seen what I needed to see. And most importantly, I had liberated what I needed to liberate. Veronica and Franklin continued to be who they were, rich in money, poor in spirit. But that was no longer my problem. I had spoken my truth. I had set my boundaries. I had protected my peace. And for the first time in a very long time, I didn't have to pretend to be anyone other than who I was. I was simply Alara, mother, executive, woman, survivor, fighter, rich in every sense that truly mattered. And that was more than enough. It was everything. So, tell me, what would you have done in my place? Would you have stayed quiet? Or would you have unleashed your own truth?